in the center of Rome with a lovely cappuccino with Alasdair Mackenzie. What have I done wrong in the past? I don't know, but Alasdair, just like Lazio, we are stuck in the transfer market because Lazio have done a lot of things wrong in the past transfer market. So we are here to explain a little bit the situation of the club. Why and what is this index of liquidity? Why does it stuck Lazio? And how can Lazio solve this problem? Because it's a big issue. Let's go saying what happened in the past. Lazio signed a lot of players. Murici, Vavro, Durmisi, all these players that haven't been useful.
What a list. Wow.
Quality players, right? Golden ball list. And they are stuck. Lazio cannot sell them, are struggling to sell them. And the salary have a huge impact on Lazio balance sheet. And that's why Lazio is not able to buy players for the moment. They have to sell before trying to sign players, right?
Yes, have to sell before buying. Also worth mentioning the fact that the main player we did sell this summer, Joaquin Correa, doesn't count at this stage.
Nope.
Because I think it was it not the first minute he played in January triggered his what's it called, the
buyout clause.
Yeah, the buyout clause. So it's 25 million, but that doesn't count for January. You've already mentioned previously the Binance deal doesn't come into the finances
Again,
yet.
Because one thing is, and this is really silly, the index of liquidity is taking a picture every 6 months. And last time they took the picture was the 30th of September. So everything happened after that doesn't count. But it blocks the January transfer market, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. The problem is, Lazio have increased the salary, because if you think a couple of years ago, the top salary of Lazio player was 2 million euros. Now we have Ciro Immobile, Milinkovic, Savic, Luis Alberto, they're all around above 3 million. But on the same side, the revenues of the club haven't increased. We have been 2 years without shirt sponsor. We don't have a lot of deals. The stadium match day income is very low. Well, with COVID it was none. So this is the biggest issue. Why index of liquidity blocks Lazio? Index of liquidity is basically the short-term debts. Is your company able to pay short-term debts, which is basically the salary of your staff? If in the 12 months you have more income than debts payment, then your index of liquidity is fine. This year the level is 0.6, so your income has to be divided your debts above 0.6, which Lazio is not, obviously. One thing very important.
0.6 is a reduction for this year, right? It's
yes.
Usually higher.
It should be 0.8. One thing very important, because I know a lot of people would ask, well, why Roma, Inter, teams full of debts are able to spend? Because Gravina, that is very silly, put this clause that if the owner of the club put the money in the club, then you can not count the index of liquidity, because basically he's putting money in the club so he can afford to pay the debts. We know that Lotito doesn't put money in the club, so that's why Lazio's block in the index of liquidity, Roma, Inter and so on are able to sign players in this winter transfer.
Well explained.
Okay.
I'm glad you did that part. But in summary, it basically seems like there are two ways of Lazio kind of getting the money needed to then sign players this month, which is either selling them or even loaning them so that you can get the wages off the book, in which case you can boost how much money you've got available.
I don't think loan is good enough, because the picture is of the 30th of September.
It obviously won't do as much, but you will still make back the salary, won't you?
For the next one, I think, not for this one. I think the only two chances for Lazio is or Lotito puts money in the company, or you sell players. You get the money to sign the other players. Loan, it doesn't work. So that's why Jordan Lukaku, who did we? Escalante, Alessandro Rossi, that had gone on loan to clubs this winter, doesn't count, basically.
Okay, right, that wasn't how I understood it. But there is this huge list. Before we are going to talk about players we might sign, but it is worth explaining why, what we're dealing with first, before we start talking about, I don't know, signing Neymar.
We are close to them, by the way. Very close.
But yeah, I mean, this list it's incredible, really, of 10 players that's really being talked about a lot in the Italian media, at least, that Lazio are trying to get rid of. And I guess the headliners are Murici and Lazio, because they're probably the only two who realistically might bring in enough money to really then reinvest in the market. And obviously, from what our listeners have been saying to us recently, and what a lot of Lazio fans in general have been saying, Lazio's sale isn't really something that a lot of people are welcoming as an idea. But this is the reality of the situation we're in, is that he is currently a bench player. And if Lazio are wanting to give Sarri what he wants and invest in the squad, bring in 2 or 3 players to rejuvenate the squad, bring down the average age, which, let's not forget, is the oldest in the league, I think, still, they are going to have to make money. And Lazio is one of the only players who realistically you might be able to do that with. Murici, how much money are you going to make even from Murici?
And on Murici, there's another very important thing to point out. Now, I don't know if all of you are aware, but 3 years ago, in Italy, there has been this law that is called Rientro dei Cervelli. This means that if you come from abroad to Italy, your company will have for 2 years deducted taxes, and we are talking about like 50%. So this is huge, because especially for a salary of a football player, that it's a lot. It means that you pretty much save a lot of millions. So Murici obviously came from abroad to Italy, and Lazio, if they have to sell it, it has to be more than 10 million euros. Otherwise, it's not worth it. You're gonna lose money, because if Murici goes abroad, which is the only option he has, Lazio won't be able to benefit of that clause that deduct the 50% of the salary. So they will have to pay full salary of Murici for the past 2 years, and lost money in the plusvalenza, because you bought it at 18 and you sell it at 10. So the only chance Lazio can sell Murici is someone offer more than 10 million euros. I hope it makes sense.
Yes, you've explained it well. It is complicated.
Yeah.
I don't like this side of football,
No.
trying to work out the numbers. I hate numbers. But yeah, no, exactly. So I mean, they basically got a lot of work to do. It's easy for us to say, okay, Lazio need to sell all these players and then we'll sign players. Now, it's 13th of January already. Okay, we're 2 weeks into the transfer market. What's happened so far is Lukaku is left on loan, Rossi is left on loan, and Escalante is left on loan.
Yes.
That's not going to give us
No.
funds necessary to sign any of the players who we are about to talk about. But we might as well talk about some of the players that Lazio being linked with.
There's another player who could be interesting, and I'm talking about Denis Vavro, because Denis Vavro has been linked to a couple of Spanish clubs, and again, Lazio could sell him, and with that money, unblock the index of liquidity problem. There have been rumors of Huesca willing to sign this player. Obviously, we know that Lotito is very tight on that. He wants money. So it's not going to be cheap, and this is why it's complicated to sell Lazio player, right?
It's made me think of a very important question. There's an account on Twitter, which people might follow, which is called Have Lazio Sold Milinkovic Savic Yet? And every day they post the word no.
Yep.
Now yesterday I got followed by a new account called Have Lazio
Me
Unblocked
too.
the Liquidity Index. Is it your account?
No,
I was sure it was going to be your account.
they followed me yesterday, and obviously had to retweet it. So yeah,
All right, I'm
keep in
amazed.
touch, because they will tell us when it's unblocked. But yeah, Lazio has this option, and as you were mentioning, it's the 13th of January. Roma already signed 2 players. Other teams are moving, so Lazio don't have that much time, and we need to hurry up, because as Sarri mentioned after the Inter match, he thinks that Lazio needs, even numerically talking, players, because Lazio has a list of 24, but in this list there's Vavro, who hasn't played a single minute, Johnny, who hasn't been called in any of the 2 matches he had the chance. So this tells you that yeah, they are in the list, but basically they're out. He's not counting about them. So numerically, what happened? Now we have Acerbi out for a month, and we have 3 players basically: Luis Felipe, Patrick, and Radu. That's it. So plenty of issues.
Which, yeah, so I think that's, yeah, we've done 10 minutes setting up the situation, so we can talk about the options. And I think the defence is the obvious place to start, given what you just said.
I think so, yeah.
And Nicolo Casale probably the first player, because he does seem to be the one who's most often being talked about. He does seem to be someone that Sarri likes or has chosen. Who knows if that's right or not, but it does seem to be what a lot of people are saying. What do you think? I mean, young Italian centre-back, but he can play in a variety of different roles.
That's good. I mean, you mentioned a couple of very important points. Young, you said that we are one of the oldest club.
Yeah.
So he ticked the first box. He played in a 4-man defense. Second box, I would say that he was playing with the Juric, etc. So very similar type of football. Another check. So yeah, I would say he's the right player Lazio should sign. Now the biggest issue is that Milan made an offer last week, 8 million euros, and has been rejected. So they're looking for 10 million euros, which, you know, it's a lot of money. The relationship within the club is great. We just signed Zaccagni. The relationship is good. So I think it could be the right option. My thing is, I think one is not enough. But I mean, let's start with one and then, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It depends on the budget, but I think if you're trying to sign a young Italian player, I don't think 10 million does sound like an awful lot. I think with Casale, the one uncertainty I've got really is more that he's only played half a season in Serie A.
Yeah.
If we think about previous Verona defenders even who have had good seasons,
Just
like
one name, Kumbulla.
Kumbulla, yeah, went for lots of money and hasn't really lived up to the hype. It is easy to get carried away with a young player doing well in the league. I wouldn't say Casale has lit up the league this year. I think that he's a promising young player, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that he's been someone who everyone's talking about.
No, I totally agree with you.
So I'm a bit. I'm not entirely sure that he's, you know, the long-term answer to Lazio's problems, but it would definitely be the right profile of player, and I would be happy to see him arrive.
Yeah, he's not going to be the player that's going to sell tickets, right? We're not going to have a sold out because Casale is here finally. But
that'll be Neymar.
That will be Neymar. But we're going to talk about Neymar later. But yeah, he's young, he's Italian, he's already played in the 4-man defense. Can he be worse than Patrick? That's my question. I don't think so. So, you know, again,
we don't want to set him that challenge.
I don't think he's coming to be the starter. He's coming to fight for a place, right? At the beginning, and then we're gonna see how things move forward. We started from Romagnoli, if you remember this summer. People were talking about Romagnoli. I would think that Romagnoli would be too expensive and not the right player. I don't rate Romagnoli that high, so I prefer going for a youngster that can improve than Romagnoli who wants amazing amount of money and who, you know, is struggling with AC Milan, to be honest.
It has been a change recently, though, hasn't it? From a lot of talk about left backs to a lot of suddenly talking about centre backs, which is a relief, if I'm honest, because I think we agree that centre back is a bigger priority than left back. But there has also been Parisia, Empoli, they've talked about.
Yeah.
Similarly, young Italian.
Yeah,
quite new to the league, but doing quite well.
One thing that we have to say, Alasdair, is that at the beginning we thought top priority is the Vice Immobile. I think Sarri realized that can wait at the moment. We have more issue on the back. So the top priority now is find 1-2 central back, because we are struggling. Acerbi will be out for a month. And obviously, I think left and right back are an issue, especially if we're going to sell Lazzari. We need someone. So, you know, Parisi could be an interesting option. Again, he checks a lot of boxes. Italian, young. He's been playing with a team that plays football very similar to Sarri, I would say. So he's another perfect fit. So, yeah, that's definitely another player that it would be interesting. Again, he doesn't come and be the starter. He has to walk his way through to become a starter. But, you know, I think one of the things that Lazio didn't do in the past is sign this youngster and give them a chance. And that's why we are now one of the oldest teams in Serie A. You know, we keep Lulic, Parola, and things like that. We sold Pedro Neto and all the youngsters we had. So I think it's time to rejuvenate this team. And this...
Yeah. And it's good to see that most of the players, if not all the players last year being linked with now, are kind of 23 or under, probably. it makes a change. You know, if we talk about previous players who've been linked with in recent years, I mean, a lot of them, you know, from David Silva to, you know, Julian Draxler, you know, some of the more unrealistic ones, it tends to be a mixture of kind of like ambitious loan moves or players coming to the end of their contracts whose you know, salary we'll never be able to afford. Whereas now we're talking about young guys. And Jonathan Burkhardt, this striker from Mainz, to be honest, I don't know loads of him. I don't follow the Bundesliga that closely, but from what I've read and seen, it seems
a decent striker, right?
It looks good, but I mean, almost too good to be true for Lazio. But talking about a deal for around 10 million, and I'm thinking this guy's 21. He's the
national
Germany
team
under 21 captain. He's doing really well in the Bundesliga this year. Is he really going to go for that much money?
I don't know. And one thing very important is that he's a number 9, but he can play even left and right wing.
Yeah.
So he gives you a lot of options. So to be honest, watching on YouTube, even Patrick can seem messed up. So, you know, you have to be very careful. But, you know, he's an interesting guy. Again, under 21. I love these things. So, again, the problem here, we were talking before starting the show, is that it looks to me that Lazio is looking already for next summer, because I don't think you're going to sign him in January. Same thing about Vecino and other players who have been linked to Lazio. While I think Lazio need players now, because, you know, the season is not over. Champions League is going to be problematic, if not impossible. We still have a chance for the Europe League. If Sarri said, okay, you know what, this year we're just going to test player, we don't care to get to the Europe League, it's better if we don't, so we'll just roll it how it happens.
Well, Sarri said he wants 2 players minimum, didn't he? And that's it's a bit of a long shot for January with Lazio. But if you think about the term of Lazio's project with Sarri, whatever it may end up being, you know, 2, 3, 4 years, you every market counts, doesn't it? Because he's got so much ground to make up from where he started to where he wants to get to, that we can't just delay everything into the summer, because Lazio work slowly in the summer as well. So there will be more money in the summer for reasons we just outlined, but not so much that we can expect Lazio to explode into bringing in loads of players.
Well, you have to
like I say, to get anything out of this season, we need to improve the squad, because it's not good enough.
This is a very valid point. It's true that we're going to get 25 million from Correa and 10 from Bainat, so Lazio will have a lot of money to spend eventually this summer. But again, as Sarri mentioned as well, we cannot do all in one transfer market. The other question I want to ask you is, you said 2 players. Do you think one is Kamenovic, or is 2 plus Kamenovic? Or will Kamenovic be back? Because one thing very important, Alasdair, is that he's a non-EU player. So this means if you sign him, you cannot get, you know, Kostic or other players like that. So my opinion is that Lazio is going to wait till the end of the winter transfer and say, okay, we didn't get a non-EU player, so we can sign a Kamenovic. If there's a chance of signing a non-EU player, then Kamenovic will be out again.
Now, this story, I'm glad you brought it up. I have a theory. Well, it's not really a theory, but I want to ask you about it. Because Kamenovic has Matej Kezman as his agent. I think that's right.
Yep.
Okay, good. Before I continue. Same agent as Milinkovic-Savic.
Yes.
The same agent, if we remember correctly, who recently suggested that Milinkovic-Savic is ready to move on in the summer.
Yep.
Now, I do wonder, from how this is being reported, it seems like Sarri's not that interested in having Kamenovic in his squad, because he doesn't think he's ready, he doesn't think he deserves to be, like you say, a non-EU, take up a non-EU spot. But the club kind of are pushing for it. In which case, I wonder if this is some sort of like agreement that's happening with Kezman to say, look, we'll bring in Kamenovic, but
don't sell.
Milinkovic-Savic stays. Okay, stop going, or you stop talking about that in public. I do wonder if something's going on there.
I think everybody thought about that, and I think it makes a lot of sense. We have to say something. This week, Kamenovic started training with the first squad. So in these days, he's with the first team training. He's been playing left back in this training yesterday. So I think Sarri is testing him. Now the thing, and obviously with Lazio we don't know anything at all. But it looks like that Lazio didn't sign him this summer because some document was missing, not because Lazio was hoping to sign some non-EU at the last day. But officially we don't know it. Like officially we didn't know Akpapro wasn't in the CONCACAF, right? Everybody thought he was with Costa in Africa. Instead he was COVID, etc. So Lazio is like that. You don't know. But I saw him training this summer, and I thought he's not that bad. He's physical.
Kamenovich.
Yeah, he's fast. He can play in different positions.
Well,
So
this is the thing. I mean, we don't really know how good he is. We have no idea. But if you think about it, we've just been talking about what we need in this team, and we want to bring down the average age, and we want more defenders, and versatility is an extra tick in the box. And Kamenovich kind of ticks all those boxes.
Yep.
The only question is quality. Is he good enough? And from everything we've heard so far, it doesn't sound like the people on the inside really think he is, or else he'd be in the squad, presumably. But how much worse can it get? It's the same thing we were talking about a few days ago with Lucas Leiva. They may as well.
And again, the problem with communication with Lazio. Now there are people saying that Lazio cannot sign Kamenovich because of the index of liquidity. First thing they're gonna do when they fix this thing is sign Kamenovich. Other things, like I do, that he's gonna be the last signing of this winter. If they don't find another non-EU, he's gonna be the guy. So what's your take? It could be A, it could be B. We don't know, unfortunately, because this is how Lazio work. But I saw him in a couple of friendly matches this summer. Obviously, it wasn't against big teams, but it looks promising. He's 21, if I'm not wrong. So it's true. The biggest issue we have is that he's coming from Serbian league to Serie A.
Yeah.
That's a huge leap, right?
And I do remember a Serbian follower of ours saying that they didn't think he was, he'd been playing anywhere near the level to be ready for Serie A. But I don't watch Serbian football, so I have no idea.
You don't watch Bundesliga. You don't watch.
Serie A purist. Serie A and Scottish Premiership.
And rugby.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, moving on from that, the another player who we got asked about, we did ask for questions, so I should probably double check them, but I know we got asked about Matthias Vecino, otherwise known as the man who crushed our dreams.
I tend to forget that.
3.5 years ago.
Yeah. And
now, the thing with him I find a bit strange is that we've been talking about the roles we need in this team, and we spent a bit of time a few days ago talking about how neither Lucas nor Cataldi fit that regista role properly. But Vecino doesn't either. He would be another option, presumably, for the Milinkovic Savic Alberto.
when I read his name, I thought he's thinking of putting him there, like a playmaker in front of the goal.
You think so?
Well, then why do you sign him, right? He can play in that position. I'm not sure he can fit in the Sarri's scheme, but because Lazio have been linked with Barami, the Empoli guy.
Yeah.
And Pedula, that knows very well Sarri, said that Sarri didn't want that type of player, preferred a Vecino type of player for that position. So I'm thinking that he believes Vecino can play in that role. And I think that's the key for Lazio midfield, because we are often out of balance, or too offensive or too defensive. We need a player there that can balance the team.
And Vecino can do that.
Yeah.
He is a really good player, but
I think that's why he's testing. He wants, and I think this is the thing, he doesn't want a too defensive mind player like Leiva in that position. He wants someone that is very good with the ball on his feet, that can move the ball around, and so that's why I think he's thinking about Vecino, I think. But the thing is, he's 30, he hasn't been playing a lot this year, so...
I'm going to quickly rifle through some of the questions we've got while I remember. Philip Pizzano was asking about Luca Romero's progress, if there's any reports on that, or in training or Primavera. You heard much about Romero recently?
Well, it looks like he got COVID and we didn't know about that again. The Primavera match has been postponed. Two of the matches that should have been played this week and the next one have been postponed to the end of January. So I think he's a talent. I think he's wasted. He shouldn't be playing with the Primavera. But again, with Zaccagni, he has...
very young though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 16, turning 17.
Yeah.
I think with Zaccagni, he has not a lot of chances for Lazio. So, my idea was sending him alone, maybe in a low Serie A team. That could be an option.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about loans before, haven't we, and how worthwhile they are, and it's not always what a player needs. You need the right circumstances, the right environment, the right opportunities for game time, I'm not sure a team in Serie A would necessarily give him that. And it's a bit harder even with a flair player where, if you get sent to Salernitana for the rest of the season, he's barely going to touch the ball probably because Salernitana is so bad.
I agree with you, but for example, there are teams that are more offensive minded that could give him a chance. And again, you could strike a deal like,
It's not Genoa, basically.
you could strike a deal and say, Verona, we are getting Casale, we are giving you 6-month loan Luca Romero in exchange plus money. So, they could use it because they are...
Or without money, just 6 months of Romero in exchange for Casale. How about that? Michael Damasio was asking us if we can save some time for some hashtag Mercato memories. But I don't really want to do that. We're talking about the January Mercato. Come on, Michael. I mean,
only bad memories.
The broken fax machines.
Saha.
Elder Postiga.
Oh
my god. I mean, it's not been a month of great successes in the past.
Alvaro. We had so many amazing signings in January. Again, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the only winter transfer market that we did great was the one with Ballardini that we were risking to be relegated. That year we signed Diaz, Viava, Candreva. No, maybe Candreva, no.
Candreva was
the year
when
later.
It was first in Rome 2011,
But we signed a couple of very good players that winter. But just because we were...
It's true, it has happened. Now and then. Milan Bishavak, great signing. Matteo Musacchio. Okay, we'll stop.
Thanks.
Tom said, if we buy no one but sell Marici for between 10 and 20 million, will this be considered a successful Mercato?
No. By the way,
sell him for 20, then probably.
Yeah, for 20, it could be important. By the way, I don't know how it's possible. He was in Istanbul attending a show, and his wife said that she's not enjoying living in Rome. He's missing Istanbul. I know. I mean, you are a foreign living in Rome. How is living in Rome?
So I hear. It's all right, yeah. It's
not bad, right?
Some days it's better than the north of Scotland. I mean, I think Lazio do need to sign players as well. The reason we're talking about this. So
even because again, what's happening is it's not only that you don't improve your team. The problem is the other teams are improving. Roma signed 2 players. Fiorentina signed a player and looking for another one. Napoli is working out deals, etc. So it's not only that you are not improving; it's the other team.
Icone and Piontek.
I'm not sure Piontek is a great signing, but they're doing, and so the gap. Well, compared to Murici, you're talking about. The thing is, the gap between us and the other clubs are increasing, right?
Yeah.
If you think about Inter, 2 years ago, I would say that Lazio and Inter were very close. In the last 2 years, the gap has been incredible between those 2 clubs.
Yeah, and that was something I mentioned that last night after the Super Cup, because you look at 120 minutes of football and they can make 6 changes, and the players they're bringing on are like they bring Sanchez and Carreo on up front and Vidal in midfield and Di Marco and Darmian on the wings, and their squad depth is...
You can argue that Vidal is not the same players of 5-6 years ago, but it's you
can argue that about a lot
you
of those
could
guys,
but you would still take it at Lazio, right?
As your bench player,
you bring in Akpa Pro, I bring in Vidal. It's a little bit of difference, right? Experience wise,
Exactly.
So
doesn't matter, which is a suitable name for this podcast, said Vecino's heavily linked with Lazio. What do you think of him as a player? What role will he occupy in the field? Well, we've just kind of answered that, but I reckon he can probably occupy any role in that midfield.
Yeah.
Probably. He's a very...
But I think the plan for Sarri is to put him in the playmaker position, because Leiva and Cataldi haven't been consistent. They haven't solved the issue Lazio have. And I think the goal from here to end of the season is to Sarri find a way to make Luis Alberto and Mikel Savic play together.
Yeah, it's been the key all along, hasn't it? China Lazio is written as a question, but it's in Chinese, so I'm hoping that Google Translate is going to work here. The problem is the translation, it could mean 2 things. It says, will Lotito end up paying for the liquidity index problem? But I don't know if they mean like in the sense of paying for it as in being
Putting
punished for it, or if he means actually putting money into
putting
the
the
club.
money, I think it makes more sense. It could be the final, the last chance Lazio has, because if you're not able to sell players,
He will try everything else first.
yeah, definitely, no doubt about it. Because the thing is, Murici wants to go to in Turkey, but clubs in Turkey hasn't got the money to afford him. There was a chance with Hull City, so that's pretty much the only chance Murici has. And the owner, the guy that's going to buy Hull City, is the former president of Fenerbahce, where he was playing, so they know very well. That's why
didn't realize that.
he wanted that. And then there's Vavro linked with Huesca, so and Lazzari that could said that there are rumors to go to Torino or Inter, but nothing concrete. So who knows?
So we did get, we'll finish up in a sec, don't worry, Vittorio. We got a question on Casale, we've talked about him, more liquidity index we've talked about. The final thing though, which I think we should mention, is Igli Tare. There's a question here saying, Vildan Glavis saying, after changing the coach and the system, is it time to change Tare as well? Time for new ideas, new path for the club?
Well, his contract is expiring in June, right? And we don't know if it has been renewed. We haven't had any communication. I think we said it already. The last 3 summer transfer of Igli Tare has been dreadful. So maybe it's time for a change. The question with Lazio I always have is, okay, you get rid of Tare, who you get? Because, Lotito, it's a little bit tight. So that's my biggest concern.
And I also think he's so like ingratiated into the fabric of the club now. He's almost more than a sporting director. He's like Lotito's right hand man. It's always Lotito and Tare that we talk about as this kind of dynamic duo at the top of the Lazio hierarchy.
The thing is, if it's true, as some journalists report, that the relationship between the two is ruined, then he's going to leave, probably. Otherwise, I'm not sure.
It's definitely one to keep an eye on. I think that he's got worse the more successful Lazio have got in general. He's not been great at spending money properly. He's made some very questionable decisions. Obviously, recently with Vavro and Murici being the 2 big ones. And, if you're a coach, you pay for bad performances, right? And the same should probably be true after a while with the sporting director. And the question of who you get in next is a good one. Because they don't come cheap, to get a good sporting director you have to spend a lot of money on that as well. So
and I think something Monchi has been great for us already. So
yeah, I know.
I think he's sport director.
That would be
honore
amazing if we
for
get
Lazio.
Pedro and then Monchi comes and he's amazing for us. That'd be incredible.
One thing important, I think, is that the structure of Lazio has to change. If you go and see Juventus had Marotta, Parateci as his vice, and then had one guy in charge of loan deals. They had a structure in place, like Inter, etc. Lazio has just Igli Tare. And I think that he's not enough to sell players, sign players, send Primavera players on loan, find deals for players that are out of the squad. I think you need 1, 2, 3 members of the staff. Lazio hasn't got scouts. He's doing all alone. Udinese has scouts, everybody has scouts, Lazio doesn't. I think the structure is missing. This is the biggest issue. It's not the name, the new sport director. Lazio has to be a structure for the transfer market.
Yeah, so just to finish off, what's your prediction? How hopeful are you? How many players are we going to sign?
I think if we don't sign 2 players, Sarri is going to be very upset about that. So I hope they're going to do it. Now, honestly, I don't know how, because I don't see we're going to sell anybody. So Lotito's going to put money in, or it's not going to happen.
Yeah, this is the thing. I think if you're talking about raising money from selling players, who's going to be buying Lazzari or Murici outright for serious money this window?
I think Lazzari is worthy. I think you can ask 50 million for Lazzari, but who?
Who's going to pay it?
Yes.
It's
going to be a
say
loan.
Torino want him, but anyone who wants him is going to say they want loan with the option or loan with the obligation rather than money up front. So
it's going to be.
I'm
really
not feeling too optimistic. Sorry, guys.
Absolutely. Yep. Unfortunately, we close with a sad tone. That's not good.
Well, prove us wrong, Lazio.
Yeah. In summer, we're going to sign Neymar with all the money.
Yes.
Guys, thank you again for listening. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Spreaker, wherever you listen to our podcast. And If you like us, rate and review and subscribe on patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. Ciao.
Ciao ciao.
Buongiorno.